Hello, it's Graham Cofe. It's my music, and it's that time of the afternoon when really work's finished. So you can put it all down, you can put everything away, you can open the drawer, put the copy of paper back in, and sit and listen to us as we're going to talk music. If you don't want to do that, then there's other things that you can do, but seeing as you're already here, it would be rude not to, wouldn't it? I will be speaking to Kari any minute now. But first, let's have a video.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Oh, there we go. It's over too fast, that video. And what a montage it is. Did you enjoy that, Kari, by the way?
So the only thing I can't stand is seeing waste, and when the guy throws the guitar in the pool, I just can't. I can't even.
I know. That was my pervading memory of that when I first saw it. Why? Why is he doing that? I just hope that somehow it kind of bounces back off the water. It is kind of some kind of magical guitar that bounces back and lands back in his hands.
Or that it was cardboard. So either way.
Or that it wasn't a real guitar. It's already met its watery grave. But there you go. Tell us, where are you coming from?
I live just outside of Palm Springs, California, which is a very southern tip of California, about maybe an hour and a half east of LA. So if you can kind of picture in your mind the far, far west coast of the States and the ocean, the Pacific Ocean, about 2 hours inland from that, where it's very sunny, very hot. It's a desert climate here.
Well, you were saying just before we came on that you did live in England for a while, or you were over here for a while. Where was that? What were you doing over here?
Yeah, I lived in Stafford for 4 years.
Stafford?
And yeah, so my former husband was stationed there with an engineering firm. And so we lived there for 4 years. And I met some great people and made music over in England, but I don't miss the weather. But apparently it's much better now. So maybe I need to give it a second chance.
No, it's not. It has been, it's been better over the last few years while we were all in lockdown, because as I was saying to you, I feel that the world kind of stopped, and maybe all of the things that caused the weather to be bad weren't there for a bit. Did you get that kind of feeling and where you were within lockdown?
Well, we definitely had the reduction in smog and the reduction in air pollution. That was, you could actually see the difference on satellite pictures and on, just regular TV cameras. So that is all disappeared again because we're back to what we were. But yeah, for about 8 months, the sky was clear. You could breathe normally. Didn't have to worry about nebulizers and all that kind of stuff. So
now. Is this your living room that you're coming from, or is this?
No, I'm in my office.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Because it's always nice to see people's walls and what they've got in the background. So what we got there? We've got a billboard.
Yeah. I charted on Billboard in 2021. Yeah. So I got that. I've got some other. I've got my album cover. I think my head's kind of. Let's see. Excuse me. Yeah, I try to keep my office filled with music stuff so that I'm always surrounded by the things that inspire me, and some articles that of jazz publications that I've been in. I try to put those up and put those around inspiration to continue to strive.
Did you always love jazz? Because jazz isn't an obvious form of music for anybody to necessarily get into from a young age, in that it requires some work compared with more popular music.
It's fair because it's not around as prevalently. I think I always had a bend toward it. I didn't necessarily always want to get into it. I didn't even really start doing music seriously until my late 30s and early 40s. So it was kind of always there in the music that I listened to as a child. I mean, I listened to a lot of Joni Mitchell and Weather Report and things that had tons of
Jazz.
jazz elements to it.
Yeah.
But I think there's jazz in more music than we think. Whether that's chordally or rhythmically. I think it's there in a lot of things. It's such a huge influence. So I don't know that it's that far off the beaten path, but it's
No.
definitely something that has intrigued me always. The mathematics of it, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those genres, if you like, and I don't particularly like genres in a way with music because it kind of limits, doesn't it, as soon as you put something into a genre. But it's one of those genres that a little bit like prog music, I would say, in that it's not necessarily that there's kind of a pure, some purists would say, well, that this is very definitely jazz, etc. But there's very definitely sort of an element to it where, as you say, it pervades through all sorts of other music. I've loved listening to people like Stina Nordenstam, for example, who has used jazz elements in quite alternative, what you would then term alternative sort of rock. And as you say, I mean, you mentioned Weather Report, but even a lot of sort of prog stroke classic rock artists have used jazz elements or fused jazz elements, and it's always there. And to me, it's partly to do when people talk about prog music, they talk about, well, it's progressive because it pushes boundaries. To me, jazz is a similar thing. I feel that sort of jazz pushes boundaries in terms of music, in terms of that modular, these chords. Here's one that's a little bit, sits out there, etc. And it's pushing it, it's pushing the ear. It's making it more interesting for the ear. And that's jazz to me. Would you agree?
I mean, I think that's definitely very valid. I think that it just depends on what style you're talking about, because I don't know that traditional jazz necessarily does that.
No.
Modern jazz certainly, but it's such a broad range of
Too massive
style. It really it's difficult because it's not like when you hear a country song, it's a country song, or when you hear a metal song, it's very easily defined.
That's metal.
So jazz is it's got that sort of ethereal. It's kind of everywhere. It can be everywhere. So yeah, I think it's definitely pushing boundaries, but it's also really paying attention to the roots of it and making sure that we honor the traditional side of it as well. So it's both sides of the coin, I think.
Yeah. So when did you discover your voice then? When did your voice appear for you?
I mean, I grew up in a musical family, so it was always there. I always would sing and play piano and learned how to play bass. And but like I say, I was in bands in my teens and early 20s, did a lot of function stuff in my late 20s and early 30s. But it wasn't until probably around 2013, 2014 when I really started getting serious about singing as a way to express where I was in that moment. And I mean, I had a very, very different job at the time, so it kind of took second. It was backstage to everything else that I was doing at the time. But when I left that that field that I was in 2019, then I got extremely serious about performing and recording and making music.
So what was it that happened in your life that then kind of tilted the balance then?
Can you hear my cat?
Yeah.
Let me she's losing it. Let me close this.
Oh, it's great when people have a musical cat or dog.
Well, my cat's blind, and so she communicates in other ways. Yeah,
I need it.
Yeah, she's always letting me know what she needs. And I'm sure now it's just attention because I'm doing something else that's not her. So, what remind me, where were we?
I was just saying. So, I mean, that's quite a long way through your life before you suddenly decide to I need to now suddenly I need to be making music of this sort. I need to be going more in this direction. So what was it that kind of pushed or tilted the balance?
Yeah, I think that I've had a really eclectic life. I've had a life that's been filled with great choices for the most part. And I think like everybody, you always have some mistakes along the way, and I don't think that anything I did was a major mistake, but I think that music was always sort of pushing through the background. It was always there. It was always it was always something that I did either on the side or at home after work. I never really fully gave it a chance to blossom into what it could be. And so, when I was living in Seattle and I was running a circus school and event center with my husband, and we sold that company in 2019. And so I was faced with this idea of, you're still young, you have a lot of life left. What do you want to do with that time? And I didn't necessarily have to go straight into another job. I really made the decision that the passion for music needed its time, and it had been on hold for long enough, and it was going to have its time. And I just thought, well, I'll try it for a year or two and see. Of course, then the pandemic hit, so everything changed anyway. But, I forged on, and I just thought, what I really, really want to do now is make music. I want to record. I want to perform. I want to write again. And I think it was just timing. It was just this time in my life when one chapter ended and the next page was blank. There was no plan. So
but it certainly sounds like you were always
now?
Quite adventurous, because I mean, some people when you ask them about what they were doing before would say, oh yeah, I was working as an office clerk doing this, or I mean, circus school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not an everyday thing.
No, it's definitely not. I mean, we did flying trapeze I did it for 8 years, my husband for 10. And it was very exciting. But for me, the best part of it, beyond the community of students and people that I knew there, was the opportunity to produce live shows that were really pretty epic in size and in scope of what we were putting out there, because we included live music in a lot of what we did. And so I did get to flex that muscle quite often, in show production, because I would just insert myself into the mix because I could. It was my place. And, like I say, it was always there. It was just always second.
The
And
Greatest Showman came out over that kind of
yeah.
period. So what did you make of that as a movie?
I mean, production wise, I thought it was fantastic. It did great things for our business because
Did it?
suddenly everybody
Yeah.
wanted to do circus. You know, it really propelled circus into the forefront of the eyes of the general public, who didn't really understand before then how accessible circus was
Yeah.
to them. And after that, you know, as we taught recreational circus, and we also trained people to go to Cirque du Soleil and, you know, the bigger
And what about that kind
performance.
of core message at the middle of it, which is that actually the thing that's really important is to keep the focus and follow your dream and don't kind of stray from that. And did that have a kind of an impact on you going, do you know what, actually, yeah, music, I need to do this?
No, it never, like, for me, it was never a burning thing in the back of my mind that said, "You have to do this."
Right.
Because, you know, like I say, my life has been so varied and so interesting in my, you know, in my eyes. You know, I've never been bored. There's never been a time where I'm like, "Gosh, if only I could do this thing," you know? And it just lined up. It just lined up for me to get serious about it when everything else cleared out of the way.
Yeah.
And, you know, that it wasn't a conscious decision to say, "I'm gonna sell this business so I can do music." It was just, "I've sold this business, now I'm gonna do music." You know,
Right.
it was very organic.
Do you feel, though, looking back at your life and the fact that you've done all of these things and you've had this kind of eclectic background, etc., do you feel like now would have only been the right time to do music in the way that you're doing music because of what you can bring to the music in terms of experience?
That is a great point, because I think life experience, particularly in this genre, is extremely important. There's a depth of sort of emotion and a depth of experiences that you really do need to have in order to get inside of the lyrical side of this music. You know, you can't really talk about unrequited love and the pain of being broken until you've gone through those things. You know, it's kind of like dancing about architecture, as they say. You know, you can't do it unless you know it. And so I think that being the age I am, being where I am in my life, having the experiences I've had, have all led to me being able to offer a richer take on the music that I'm putting out there now, for sure.
Does that open your eyes when it comes to, you know, choosing pieces of music or you know, thinking about how you're going to go and create a piece of music? Are you looking for that emotional connection first, if you like?
Yeah, no, that's great. Think I think my gut reaction to that is no. I don't seek out a song based on the level of emotion it would take to produce it. I think that no matter what the song is, you know, you can take pretty much any song and you can weave in your own experience, or in some cases, you know, for my first album, I know there were a few songs where, you know, the Shelley Berg and I, and he was producing me, and we would actually make up stories, you know, just to be able to embody a character, or, you know, get inside the story itself of, you know, from this perspective, or, you know, from the opposite perspective that is generally, you know, perceived. And
Right.
so I don't think that I necessarily look for highly emotionally charged songs. I think you can make any song bite. You just have to be able to embody it.
Yeah. And what's that process like for you? Does that require you to go out for a walk, or just do you need to circle around the song for a bit before you can you can get that?
Generally, it takes reading the lyrics very intently, because that's where the story is.
Yeah.
It's not as often that the story comes out of the actual notes and the chords, although that's integral. The story is most obviously in the lyrics. And so when I'm exploring that, it's really about digging in to what the lyrics mean on the surface, but then also what's the sub story, what's my relation to it, what's the connection of other people to it. Really getting into the story side of it. And generally for me, that just means reading the lyrics. The vocal part comes very naturally out of that, but the story needs to be there in order to sort of generate that feeling and that emotion. Yeah, I do go on a lot of long walks, but not necessarily with my lyrics in hand.
As a vocalist doing this kind of music, I can't say that I ever have. So I being someone that's sung along to pop songs, if you like, or indie based songs in the past, and even then you still have to kind of inhabit a headspace and try and emotionally connect yourself with the music. But is there, within the studio space, do you have to have an atmosphere? Do you have to have something happening in order to find the right space?
Like the vibe? Yeah, I think some people, require certain things. I know a lot of artists that, maybe they have a candle in their booth, or they don't want the lights on, or they want the lights on really hot, whatever that thing is for them. For me, being surrounded by musicians who are at the top of their field and who are creating this soundscape for me, that's what gives me my vibe. That's where my inspiration stems from. It's from being a part of this greater collective that, has this wealth of experience musically, to create this base or this atmosphere, this environment for me to then come in and create. And so if the vibe from the other musicians is right, that's my vibe. That's what my vibe is, and that's where it comes from. The last session that I did at Capitol, it was magical, and we were deep in the heart of COVID time, and I was about to go and have surgery like a few days after the session ended. And so that my headspace was a little bit crazy, but these guys came together and created this very gentle, I call it very round, it was very egg-like place for me in the studio, so that I felt completely safe. I felt completely vulnerable. I felt able to access all of my emotions and give what needed to be given. Yeah.
Do you feel that actually helped you going into your surgery? I mean, because surgery is a dreadful thing for anyone to go through, but it's especially, I think, one of the worst things about surgery is people thinking about it beforehand. So did it actually kind of do you know what I mean? Did it actually kind of help?
No.
No, it didn't.
No, because it was such a life-changing thing that I was headed to do, that no, it was in the back of my mind for sure. And the making the music was not as much of a distraction as I think I had hoped it would be.
You might have hoped it might have been
Yeah,
more.
no, it really wasn't. It was very present.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Yeah.
But you're here, and we're grateful that you're around, and that you're making this music. What's kind of next on the cards for you in terms of music? How do you continue to challenge yourself?
This year has been a year of sort of stepping back a bit. I did release an album in January, but I also was not super present for the release because I was over in Africa climbing Mount Kilimanjaro for an awareness campaign. So I was there with 22 other kidney donors who we wanted to raise awareness about being a living donor and what you can accomplish after that, after, having that as a part of your life. And so it fell basically smack in the middle of the release cycle. And so I do feel like I have more work to do on that release, even though
this release.
Yeah, even though it's
Yeah.
from a few months ago, because, just not being super present during that time meant that I wasn't able to promote it as much as I wanted and, kind of get the word out about that. So I feel like there's still a lot for me to do with that this year. I'm also working on a third album that is going to be recorded. I have about 5 more songs that need to be recorded. And then my big focus for the end of this year and for 2024 is to write again, to start writing and start producing other people as well. I'm really, really enjoying the production side of things and being a producer. I've co-produced both of the albums that I've put out, and it's been an amazing experience for me. It's something that I didn't really know that I loved until I started doing it. It was never in the back of my mind, like you could be a producer, but I can see that as more of a future where I'd like to head musically as well, just being more on the production side of things. I still want to make music, and I've got a lot of live performances this summer, and that's exciting. But I also, in the back of my mind, I'm ready to help other people make their music the best it can be. So yeah,
as you've said that, I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions on that, which is one, in terms of production or producers, who would you say is stand out for you in terms of production on the records?
Oh man, I mean that's huge because there's so many. There's I really, just going from my experience, I learned everything that I know, about actually doing production from my co-producer Shelley Berg. And for me, I'm not going to say like, oh, he's the best producer ever of all time, but that's my real experience.
If you like.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously, people like Brian Eno or, Phil Spector, whoever, whatever we're going to talk about, yeah, incredible producers, even with their storied past. But for me, like my experience, Shelley she showed me what it meant to fully support an artist and to create an environment in which the artist feels not only safe, but free, which I think is a huge thing, because so many people, whether they put restrictions on themselves because of imposter syndrome or whatever their things are that are holding them back, or whether it's a label that's putting restrictions on, or whatever those restrictions may be, they get in the way of the art. And Shelley really showed me how to remove that feeling of restriction and get inside a song. And for me, that's it's paramount to having a great performance, but then also learning from the guys that I've worked with about what makes a song work, and then also having access to incredible engineers, the people that I've worked with, to see how that side of it works. I just think that there are so many aspects to create a finished product that is not only resonates with you as a listener, but is also sonically spectacular.
I can tell by listening to you that you're utterly in love with the process.
I love it.
Which is
yeah,
wonderful to hear.
Yeah, recording is where I want to be.
Yeah. So is there is there an artist that you've heard that you would go, now I just would love to produce them because something in their voice or something to do with you perhaps hear, I mean, I suppose almost controversially, you perhaps hear sort of like, yeah, that their songs are good, but I think I could make them better.
I wouldn't dare to say that about any, major artists out there, but I know a lot of the artists that I've met through networking on social media. I have a feeling that I'll be reaching out to them, in the coming year to say, hey, I hear your stuff. I want to make it better. Do you want to work together?
Yeah.
And so, when we talk about major artists, I mean, obviously there are people that I think it would be fun to work with, but I wouldn't by any means, with my very limited experience, say like, I think I could make this better. One dream artist that I would love to work with is XTC, but it, will never happen. But that's that they've been, icons in my eyes since my early teens. So, that's, and I think their production is stunning.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, we've had Colin on here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Colin Mauldin was on here.
Oh, I didn't know.
Chatting about some of XTC, but also, he's still producing music himself. So maybe get in touch with Colin.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
There you go. Probably one of the best bass players.
Yeah.
Out there in terms of melodic lines, etc. So yeah. There you go. You never know. And unless you ask, you never get.
No, you're right. It's always a no unless you ask. That's how I feel about everything in life. So.
It's the same
Very
here.
True.
Absolutely. So we'll make sure Colin's tagged in.
Oh, wonderful.
And I know Colin's PR people, so I will.
Oh my goodness.
We'll see what we can do.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. They honestly, like lyrically, melodically, production wise, everything about XTC has enthralled me. Yeah.
Favorite XTC song then, just for fans of you, and then in years to come we can put that in a quiz.
Literally,
Kari Kirkland's favorite XTC song.
Anything from Apple Venus, but I think oh my gosh, you're putting me on the spot because I love them all. I'd Like That, I think, is one of my favorites. I'd Like That.
There we go. If when you go, tell us just before you go a little bit about this album and where people can hear it as well, or what's the best place for people to hear it from your perspective, because everybody always comes on and says, well, yeah, it's available on all these platforms, etc. But it's nice to hear from. I always ask artists where they would like people or how they would like people to listen to their music, because I think that's important.
Yeah, great question. I would love for people to hear this album on vinyl because it's 180 gram vinyl. It's beautifully produced. And I love vinyl. I've got, a collection in my living room, and I think it's one of the best ways to listen to music. I know that's controversial, and, some people like the purity of digital, but I love the warmth of vinyl, and I think this album really sits well on that. So if you're a vinyl head, you can buy the vinyl on my website, but by all means, if I always like to say, if you can get a hold of a record player, get as many records as you can, because it's just such a beautiful way to listen to music. If you're a streamer, honestly, it is, people love it or hate it, but Spotify is, for me, the platform that I think I've reached the most people on globally. I managed to use the Spotify for Artists platform to get some songs pitched from the new album and from my first album, and they landed on some editorial playlists, which is, yes, I know we make nothing from it, and it's a horrible system, but it is the world we live in. The good thing for me about Spotify and Apple, to some extent, I've had more purchase on Spotify, but is that you get to reach so many people from around the world. And for me, then I can make those connections on socials. I've had people from Indonesia and Korea and Brazil and, everywhere in the world reach out on Instagram and say, hey, love this is great. How can we find it? Everything's on my website as well. I try to
It's a
keep.
love-hate relationship.
It is.
It's a love-hate relationship, I think, and
Yeah.
a lot of musicians have that. And we've talked about it a lot on this program. Personally, I think it's about. Well, it's partly about playing the game, but it's about both, really. I mean, for me, producing this program, one of the places I put it to is Spotify, and one of the reasons I can do that, or I do that, is because it makes it, as you say, it makes it incredibly accessible very easily to people. But it also means that I can get people to move from listening to me gibbering on talking to you to actually listening to your music, because we can
Right.
link it in, and then it's
Right.
it's just a seamless transition between, oh, I'm interested in this person now I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah.
But I like to think of it as the beginning part of the journey. I like to think of it as a door opened that then enables people to go, yeah, do you know what, I love Kari's voice, I love her music, and that's not going to sound any better than when it's on vinyl. So
Right.
I now need to go and buy the vinyl. And also because I now feel invested, and because I feel invested, I want to support.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of always staying optimistic that we're kind of entering, as human beings, a new period which kind of we all saw within the lockdown and the pandemic, that the relationship side of everything is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And the tactile element of human nature is important, and that's why I feel that even though streaming sales or streaming figures continue to soar, etc., we are seeing an increase in vinyl sales. We're even seeing an increase in tapes, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
But all of those physical things, because I think ultimately as people we kind of long for that. We kind of long for something that we can touch and feel, and we want to genuinely show support. And I think it's just a message that a lot of musicians perhaps came a bit late to the table with, which is that if you want us to make music, guys, you need to need to buy something, right? Because
it is really tough. It's very difficult because the streaming side of things really is, it's so minimal that it's awful. And right now the way to earn as an artist is to sell merch, but to tour and to perform live, and even that is getting harder, particularly here in the States. I don't know how it is over there, but it costs a lot to put on a good show, and every day it just gets harder and harder to make a living, and you have to be able to persevere through all that, and it has to be valued, I think, in a different way. Art needs to be valued, full stop. It just does, because we don't exist without it, and we do exist in a really morbid, terrible way, but we need art in order to thrive. So,
but I think at the same time, I think artists are getting creative with how they play the game, because they're creative, which is great, So I spoke last week to Josh Savage, who's releasing his music on NFTs. He's the UK number one NFT artist. He's found a way through there. I've spoken to artists who have released their music as books, artists who have released their music as part of an art exhibition. I just think it's it's almost part of the tension of being a creative as well, which is how do I create this in a way that breaks down walls.
I get that, and and that's great. I think that it is great to be innovative and to figure out how to sort of skirt around. But at the end of the day, you're making music. It needs to be valued. I
It
go back
does.
to that
Oh yeah,
because
no, it
it
does.
just needs we as creatives, we need to be creative. And part of the problem that happens is that once you start into the business side, and once you have to start becoming this person who's thinking entrepreneurially about how to squeak into this, this arena or this arena, it chips away at your ability to create, which is the thing you're supposed to be doing. And in its purest form, back in the day, artists made music. That music went out to the world. People bought that music. From my youth, I mean, cassette tapes became, CDs became vinyl again now. And I just think that, not to get on a soapbox, but it's like the more we go towards the digital side of things and the more that we head in that direction, the less creative we're able to be, just at the base of it, because we have to start putting on all these different hats to figure everything else out, because nobody has a label anymore to do all that for you.
That's
So,
true.
the purity of creating music, putting it out, having it appreciated, and being able to reap, enough from that to be able to then create more, it's a bit lost, and that's tough.
Well, I appreciate your music, Kari, and I'm sure people watching this will too. If you do, as you watch it, and you find Kari's music and you listen to it and you love it, do spend a bit of money. Buy
No pressure.
Yeah, no, total pressure. Buy something for Kari. Just buy her a coffee if you've listened to one of her songs. Just send her some money anyway. Just because you want to, and do share this as well if you've enjoyed this conversation with Kari Kirkland this afternoon. Do throw it around all of your friends by tagging other people into it. As I always say, not because you won't make me famous, I'm too old and too ugly for that, but because people like Kari are very, very talented and actually deserve your time and attention.
Come on now. Come on. Prop yourself up.
No, it's true. But it's fine. I'm okay with that. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kari. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
The pleasure's
Do continue to do what you do. You've got an absolutely amazing voice, and I love listening to your music.
Thank you.
So
thank you. I appreciate it.
Until next time, this has been My Music with Kari Kirkland. Bye for now.